Lucas Ramirez had always measured his life in alarms. How many seconds it took him to roll out of the bunk, how fast the engine doors slammed, how long a hose line could be charged. Time was a rope, taut and sparking, and if he let go even for an instant, someone else's life might slip away in the flames. Then the ceiling collapsed. He remembered the shriek of warped steel, the stunning punch of heat along his thigh, the way the world turned the color of rusted pennies. Someone hauled him out by the straps of his turnout gear, and the next sounds were hospital monitors instead of sirens. No more seconds counted, just hours and days. A dull, shapeless monotony of skin grafts and physical therapy. 5 months later, his surgeon pronounced the leg mending nicely, but the rest of Lucas felt like wet ash. The occupational therapist handed him a pamphlet that smelled faintly of copier toner. Community Center Creative Therapy Classes. "You want me to finger paint?" he muttered. "Clay," the therapist said, tapping a photo of smiling people at pottery wheels. "It's good for fine motor recovery, and your medical leave covers the fee." Lucas considered the absurdity of trading a hose nozzle for a lump of mud. But the apartment was quiet, and the station was off limits until the psychologist cleared him. Clay, at least, wouldn't scream at night like the memory of twisting beams. So on a drizzly Tuesday, he limped into the Midtown Arts Co-op, smelling faintly of liniment and resignation. The classroom, repurposed from a former laundromat, held 8 pottery wheels in a semicircle. Shelves sagged with half-fired mugs, lopsided bowls, and creatures that looked part dragon, part coffee bean. A jukebox-sized kiln hummed in the corner. At the center of it all stood the instructor, wearing mismatched socks, one neon orange, the other turquoise with tiny tacos. Her brown hair was piled in a messy knot, threaded with a ribbon that looked like it had lost a confetti battle. She spoke to a beginner whose clay tower had just folded on itself. "Look," she said, poking the ruin lightly. "Your pot's not failing, it's bowing." "Like a polite aristocrat," the student laughed. The instructor spotted Lucas hovering in the doorway and waved with both hands, speckled by gray slip. "New recruit. Name." "Lucas. Excellent. I'm Mara." She peeled a registration sheet from a clipboard and slid it toward him. "We'll get you spinning in no time. Ever touched a wheel?" "Closest I've come is tightening hydrants." "Same basic principle," she declared. "Center, pressure, water. You'll see." Lucas signed, ignoring the column marked, "Why are you taking this class?" He didn't want to write, because the fire ate a piece of me. Mara guided him to a wheel. "Seat height's adjustable. You'll learn to feel it in your spine." Then she noticed the cane beside him and the puckered scar running from his knee to mid-thigh. "My balance is crap," he admitted before she could ask. "Legs still stiff." "Clay's forgiving." She tilted her head as if listening to secret music. "When you can't move fast, you move deliberate. That's half the art." She pressed a 10-pound bag of clay into his palm. The cool heft surprised him. It was like holding a heartbeat that hadn't decided what body to inhabit. "Rule 1, she said. "Clay remembers every touch. Be kind to it, and it will be kind back, usually." As introductions went, it beat the smell of smoke and fear that had greeted him last time life changed abruptly. The first hour, Lucas mostly failed. The wheel spun, and the clay wobbled like a drunk carnival ride. His palms slid, the lump collapsed. Mara crouched beside him, close enough that he could smell citrus soap, mingled with earthy slip. "Centering is a conversation," she said, placing her hands over his. "Don't muscle it. Coax." Her fingers were warm. They guided his thumbs inward, steady as a metronome. A cylinder rose from the slurry, crooked but unmistakably vessel-shaped. Lucas felt a flicker of something he hadn't known since the accident. Satisfaction that wasn't tied to adrenaline. When class ended, Mara announced a tradition. Week 1, homework. Observe something ordinary. Then imagine how it would look reborn in clay. Bring a sketch or description. Lucas almost laughed. Imagination had been scorched out of him. But Mara's grin, wide and slightly lopsided, burned brighter than the fluorescence, and he found himself nodding. He walked home under a misting sky, cane-tapping rhythm. In the apartment, he absent-mindedly opened the freezer, stared at a bag of peas, sliding to one side, and thought of how the peas rolled around each other, yet stayed in one mass when frozen. Clay remembered every touch Mara had said. Did ice remember cold hands too? He sketched peas in a bowl, stringing them into a spiral tower, each round sphere locking the next. It looked ridiculous. It made him smile. Week 2, he entered class early, and Mara waved him to her workbench. She was sculpting a creature with wings shaped like teacup handles. "I call it an owl acorn," she explained without looking up. "An owl that's absolutely certain it's a unicorn." Lucas snorted. "Identity crisis much?" "Art is therapy for objects too," she said. "Now, show me your homework." He unfolded his P-Tower sketch. Expecting polite dismissal, he braced himself. Mara's eyes lit. "A helix of spheres. Nice study in balance. Do you want to throw the spheres or hand build them?" "Simplest way possible," he said. "Nothing wrong with simple." She handed him 2 wooden ribs and a length of fishing line wire. "Let's get rolling." Literally. Under her instruction, he learned to lever, small balls of clay between his palms, the motion gentle and repetitive. His leg ached, but his hands relaxed, the scars on his knuckles stretching without pain. Spheres lined up like soldiers awaiting inspection. Beside him, Mara narrated each step in a jumble of metaphors. Think of gravity as your sarcastic friend. It's always teasing, but if you listen, you'll stay upright. She poked one sphere so it wobbled. "See? Sarcastic friend." Lucas laughed more in those 2 hours than in the previous 5 months. During cleanup, she asked, "What brought you to clay, Lucas?" He hesitated. Truth hovered like smoke. "Work accident," he said finally. "I'm a firefighter." Mara's hands paused, drying a sponge. Her eyes softened, a cloud passing over sunlight. "That explains the heroic posture. I limp. Even limping, you stand like people should get out of your way." He shrugged. "Habit." Mara opened her mouth as if to say more, then closed it. Instead, she offered him a popsicle stick marked with initials. LR, burned in with a wood skewer tip. "We label our tools so they don't wander. Adoption papers for your rib tool. Keep it." Lucas traced the scorched letters. The last time someone had offered him a personalized anything, it had been a badge at graduation. On the subway home, he thought about the look that had crossed Mara's face when he said, "firefighter." Not fear, exactly. Something else, like recognition. The 3rd week introduced glazing. Colors with whimsical names, dragon fruit shimmer, fog kiss blue, lined the shelves. Lucas was coating his helix pieces when Mara wandered by, coffee mug shaped like a cat in her hand. "I did some Googling," she said quietly. "Found your rescue video." Great. The helmet cam footage had circulated. Lucas dragging a kid out, then vanishing under debris. "You stalk all your students?" "Only the interesting ones," she said, lips curling. Then solemnly, "My dad was with Engine 14. He died in a warehouse fire when I was 17. Lucas froze, brush dripping jade glaze. "Mara." I'm sorry." She shrugged one shoulder, the motion brittle. "Clay got me through that. You could say I owe firefighters my career." The silence between them felt both heavy and oddly safe. Finally, she tapped his glazed sphere. "We remember the touch, right? Keep shaping." When she walked away, Lucas exhaled shakily, as if escaping smoke. Days blurred, therapy appointments, cautious jogs around the block. restless nights. But every Tuesday and Friday, the studio door opened like a portal to a world governed by wheels and whimsical rules. Lucas learned to breathe with the clay's spin. He learned that his scarred leg could pump the pedal gently, that his burned fingers could finesse a rim thinner than a dime without tearing it. Every milestone, Mara celebrated by sticking a googly eye on the studio bulletin board. He also learned how she sang off-key when concentrating, how she couldn't resist puns, kiln it with kindness, how she kept emergency chocolate in a toolbox marked very fragile, handle with joy. Their conversation stretched beyond clay. Favorite city views, hers, the Esplanade at sunrise, his, any rooftop with engine sirens in the distance. Secret cravings. She sprinkled curry powder on popcorn. He confessed to dipping tortilla chips in peanut butter. They traded stories like marbles, rolling them back and forth until shiny paths appeared between their lives. One Friday, as class ended, Mara asked, "Doing anything tomorrow? I'm firing a batch at my studio. Could use an assistant. No pay, lots of pizza." Lucas's reflex said no. Crowds still knotted his stomach, and unfamiliar spaces could strobe into the burned warehouse in his nightmares. But he wanted to see her outside fluorescent lights. "Sure," he said, surprising himself. She wrote the address on his palm with a Sharpie, the ink smell earthy and intimate. "Dress for mess." The next afternoon, Lucas arrived at a converted carriage house behind a row of townhomes. Windows were flung open, despite winter's edge. Music drifted, an old soul record crackling. Inside, shelves groaned with Mara's creatures, vases shaped like lightning bolts, platters that resembled topographical maps, a teapot balanced on crab legs. Color exploded everywhere, paint, yarn, even the broom bristles. "This place is," he searched. "Like a unicorn exploded?" she offered. "Exactly." They loaded the kiln, his P helix included. He watched Mara work, the concentration in her narrowed eyes, the deft tuck of hair behind ear, the way she murmured thanks to each piece before sealing the door. While the kiln climbed toward 2200 degrees, they sat on overturned buckets, devouring pizza. Talk circled back to her father. She showed him a small, unglazed figurine of a fire helmet resting on folded wings. "I make one every year on the anniversary," she said. "Never glaze it. Grief feels raw. Glaze would be dishonest." Lucas traced the tiny helmet brim, soothed by the cool bisque. "Do you ever worry the clay will break?" "Sometimes it does." She set it carefully on a shelf. "But making it is the point." The kiln hummed. Orange flames licked the sight port. Lucas felt their warmth without flinching. It smelled not of charred wood, but of transformation. Mara noticed his steady gaze. "First time you've been near high heat since—" "Yeah." He flexed his wounded leg, surprised it wasn't trembling. "Feels different. Controlled." "You're controlling it," she agreed. When cones bent and the firing finished, they propped the door and leaned into the night air, steam mixing with winter fog. Mara reached for his hand. The contact was sure, not tentative. Scars met calluses, fitting like puzzle edges. Under the street lamp, she rose on tiptoe and brushed her lips to his cheek, a gesture as soft as slip. "Thanks for keeping the fire," she whispered. Lucas's heart, long charred, sparkled to life. Over the next month, recovery accelerated. He ditched the cane. The station's therapist cleared him for light duty, but recommended a gradual return. Captain O'Neill offered a desk job on fire prevention education, a role Lucas had once scorned as pamphlet pushing. Now, he considered how many kids' lives it could shape. In the studio, Lucas began a new piece, a phoenix rising from waves. Its wings stretched wide, feathers etched in swirling patterns. Centering the mast took strength, but shaping the curve of a neck required delicacy. Mara hovered nearby, lending advice only when he asked, which was rare now. She caught him agonizing over a tiny crack near the base. "Scars make stories," she reminded. "It might explode in the kiln. Then we'll pick up the pieces and mosaic something new." She nudged his shoulder. "Trust the fire." He did. For the class's spring showcase, Mara booked the co-op's gallery room. Flyers promised the wonders of dirt transformed. Lucas invited his crew, unsure who would show. The night of the opening, he paced outside in a sport jacket that felt tighter than turnout gear. Through the window, he spotted Mara arranging cupcakes on a tray shaped like a surfboard. She wore a cobalt dress, spattered with small white marks, shapes that upon closer look were tiny clouds carrying umbrellas. She saw him and waved. He entered to claps from fellow students. The crew from Station 72 arrived. Captain O'Neill, Paramedic Davis, Rookie Samuels, and their faces lit when they found Lucas's Phoenix centered on a pedestal, wings catching gallery lights like sunrise. "Damn, Lou," Davis said, whistling. "You've been busy." Lucas's grin came easy. "Had a good teacher." Mara joined, introducing herself. Captain O'Neill shook her hand. "Appreciate you fixing our guy." "Just shaped the clay," she said. He fired himself. Halfway through the evening, a sharp alarm shrilled. "Smoke detector." A hush fell. Lucas's muscles tensed, instinct overriding memory. A curl of gray trailed from the refreshment table. A paper napkin had drifted onto a votive candle. Small flames licked the cloth. Even before Mara could react, Lucas crossed the room, snatched a pitcher of water, and doused the fire. Smoke fizzled. He carried the soggy bundle outside, heart pounding but mind clear. No ceiling collapsing, no screaming beams. Just a tiny problem solved. Applause erupted, half teasing, half awed. Mara reached him first, eyes shining. "Some habits die hard. Fortunately," he said, coughing once on the lingering smoke. It tasted like resolve, not terror. She drew him aside, behind a row of freestanding screens draped with student aprons. The hubbub dimmed. "You okay?" she asked. "I think so." He tested his breath, steady. "Feels like I got a piece of myself back." Mara's fingers brushed his cheek, smudging a bit of soot he hadn't known was there. "I like all the pieces, even the singed ones." He laughed softly. "You know, you've been shaping more than clay here." "That was my evil plan." She leaned closer. The ribbon in her hair tickled his neck. "Is it working?" He answered by kissing her, a slow, sure press of lips that tasted of cupcake frosting and relief. Her hands cupped his jaw. His rested at her waist, feeling the rise of her breath. Around them, the gallery buzzed, oblivious. When they broke apart, Mara laid her forehead against his. "Your Phoenix sold, by the way. Anonymous buyer left this note." She unfolded a slip of paper from her pocket. "Keep rising. The world needs your fire." Lucas swallowed past a sudden lump. "Any idea who?" She shrugged. "Could be fate." Then, grinning, she added, "Or your captain." Either way, he realized, it didn't matter. What mattered was the clay beneath his fingernails, the warmth of Mara's body near his, the future loosening like a lump finding center. Outside, sirens wailed distant and unhurried. Someone else's alarm, someone else's seconds on the rope. For the first time, Lucas didn't feel compelled to chase them. There were other ways to keep people safe, other fires worth tending. Mara laced her fingers through his and tugged him back toward the gallery lights. "Come on, firefighter. Let's show them how we boo, not fail." He followed, steps even, heart balanced. Around his wrist, the popsicle stick tool bracelet she'd crafted for him tapped lightly, a metronome of new rhythm. Clay remembered every touch. And Lucas, inexorably, was learning to remember joy.